We didn't want a slogan. We didn't want to pay a lip service to the two-state solution. We wanted to provide a concrete mechanism.
Well, good evening to everybody. I feel honored to be moderating this discussion about the Holy Land Confederation, and what we will try to do is actually to go a little bit deeper into the issues than we have done so far. And I think I should, before we begin, also a little bit more explain my own role in all of this, because already for some time I have been moderating what you can call classical track 2 discussions between not only Hiba and Yossi, but and I would like also to recognize in the room first Farah Badur from Jordan, and also Hisham. Yes, I see Hisham as well, Hisham Youssef from Egypt, because whatever two-state solution there is going to be, these two countries will be very much involved, and even also of course also their interests. So we felt from the beginning that it was also important to involve them in our discussions. These discussions started, if you remember, Hiba and Yossi, before October 7. And then, of course, after October 7, a whole new situation had occurred, and also the challenge then how to fit a two-state solution into a Gaza aftermath plan. And that is also something we have been discussing as part of this group. And we even have been also sharing informally, as you do this in track 2, an interim report in July already of last year about how we felt the Gaza aftermath could be resolved, including then also a two-state solution. Well, I'm not going to delve further in that, because that's something we have been discussing. We know it is as uncertain as ever whether we will have a Gaza aftermath with really a solution, and we all, I think, in this room are convinced that that will have then to include a two-state solution. But also, if you wish to have a two-state solution, I think you need to look then into the issues and to look into how a new perspective for a two-state solution could actually be envisaged. And that is what Yossi and Hiba have been doing with their initiative. And let me then also give them credit for their courage and their perseverance to actually do this even after October 7. I don't need to tell you how that it's not easy for both of them. And that's also why I feel honored that I can play this role for them in trying to bring this further. And I wish to thank also the initiators of this initiative, which is called the Beilin initiative now, to promote their ideas, for giving them this opportunity. Now, let us now go into a bit more into the issues. I think that if you look at their ideas, it is certainly not to replace a two-state solution. It cannot replace a two-state solution, because if you want a confederation, you need two states. So their ideas are very much based on the premise that the confederation, the idea and the concept of a confederation, should be a facilitator for a two-state solution. And now, if you allow me to put the first questions to them, and then I suggest we get into a discussion also with you, but I think it is important to lead this discussion in a bit. So may I then ask you, Hiba and Yossi first, and also you, Shlomo. I forgot also to introduce you as the third. You have been playing a very important role also in the security discussions, but I will come to that. But could you both be giving, from your Palestinian and from your Israeli perspective, perhaps 2 or 3 main reasons why you feel that the Confederation, the HLC, as you have been now been launching, can resolve and help to resolve these vexing final status issues? Jerusalem, for example, but also the settlements. There are all the other issues. I don't need to explain them to you. And while you do so, maybe you should also tell us what, in your view, are the risks. What are the risks also involved if you actually go into this direction of a confederation? And Shlomo, already to you, after they have spoken, Shlomo has been actually very helpful in this initiative because together with a Palestinian expert, they have been looking deeper into the security issues. And Shlomo, from that perspective, maybe you can also come in this lead-in discussion. So please, I think maybe start with you, Hiba, on the...
Certainly. Well, thank you, Robert. And indeed, it's an honor and a pleasure to work with you because of your extensive and intensive experience and involvement in this conflict and the roles that you have played over the years. I think, again, as I said in my introductory remarks yesterday evening, the commitment to the two-state solution remains a foremost, not just a desire, but a necessity, I think, for the two people to come together and share this land. I mean, Holy Land Confederation, as I said, was not a title by coincidence. It was designed to really bring the attention to the Holy Land, to Jerusalem and its holy sites, and to demonstrate that we can take this conflict, this protracted long-term conflict that has inflicted pain and misery on both people, and also the region and the global community and the international community that has been involved. We didn't want a slogan. We didn't want to pay a lip service to the two-state solution. We wanted to provide a concrete mechanism and a strategy to demonstrate to the decision makers that while the classic two-state solution may be complex and vexing and challenging to address because of the various issues that we have discussed, including the settlers and the settlements, and the fact that Israel has annexed East Jerusalem and extended the laws of Israel to East Jerusalem, including the Old City. All of these steps should not thwart us from the opportunity to discuss further ideas that can bring us along the lines of the two-state solution. While again, the Oslo agreement was interim in nature, did not define the final framework, left the 5 critical issues open: refugees, settlements and borders, Jerusalem, international relations, and the whole recognition aspect of a Palestinian sovereign state next to Israel, left these issues open. We wanted to tackle them all. And we built on the Geneva initiative, and we took that a few steps further and said, okay, what are the main issues that prevent the two sides from moving forward? And as Yossi identified the issue of the settlements, especially the settlers who are driven by ideology and do not want to leave the West Bank in a swap situation, and especially after the Gaza withdrawal, the Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza settlements, what brought about the takeover by Hamas and so forth and so on, and the years that have gone along of conflict management, and we came to the realization that conflict management has failed and does not work. The two-state solution hasn't failed. The conflict management has failed. And so we said, okay, fine, let's look at another formula to bring us forward into this solution, because there is no other solution than the two-state solution. So this is how we tackled the issues.
Maybe just from the point of view of risks,
Palestinian viewpoint on what are the risks if you go the road?
I mean, the risks are, of course, that the Palestinians would have to give up even more. So it has the, because again, we propose that certain issues like security matters that Shlomo will discuss further would be more shared and would be, so the Palestine may have to give up some elements of sovereignty. So that's risky. The old city we are proposing would be an open city, but we will be delineating borders for Jerusalem. So from a Palestinian perspective, the old city is part of the 1967 border. So this is another compromise that the Palestinians have to make vis-a-vis an open city rather than having all of the old city part of the 1967 border, swapping more land, so swapping more blocks, keeping settlers. I mean, they won't be settlers, they would be permanent residents of the state of Palestine. So those are some of the risks and the challenges that we would have to look at and examine.
Thank you, Hiba. Thank you so much. Yossi.
Yeah. The Israeli fear of some of those people with whom we were talking is that there is no confederation in the world. There were confederations. They either became two states or one state. But they did not remain confederations. And their fear is that we will not be unique. We may have a confederation for a while, and then it may become a one-state solution. So those who are very much against the one-state solution and want to assure that Israel remains Jewish and democratic are afraid that that's something that may happen. We, of course, believe that this is not the case. But if you ask me what are people afraid of, so this is the main reservation. On the Palestinian side, it is very different. On the Palestinian side, there has been a feeling all the years of Mu'ammar Akbira, meaning there is a kind of conspiracy, which stems from the fact that the relationship between Israel and Palestine are not symmetric. By definition, they are not symmetric. Whatever we decide, they will not be symmetric. And so, Oslo, by many people in Palestine, is seen as a pre-plan of Israel to keep the settlements in place, not to withdraw, and make the 5 years something which will go on forever. And this is something which is very difficult to refute, because what is happening with those Palestinians, and it is not malice, but what is happening is that they are taking the reality of today and say, this is what you planned from the beginning. You wanted to have more settlements. You wanted to have more settlers, and so on and so forth. And this is your very, very good planning idea to cover it with 5 years or whatever, but actually you made an interim agreement, something which is there forever. And this is what was a way to annex. So the same feeling I feel with people whom I talk to. There is a general positive attitude among Palestinians to this idea, even more than in Israelis. By the way, those who are very much supporting it more than any other group is the Israeli Arabs or the Israeli Palestinians. They are very supportive because it solves problems for them of identity and whatever. It makes their life easy. So they are very happy with it. But with the the Palestinians, the issue is that it is not a symmetric solution. And you know, we are breaking our heads how to make it more symmetric. For example, we said the same number of Palestinians who would like to live in Israel will be the number of Israeli settlers who would like to remain in Palestine. And it has nothing to do with the solution for the refugees. And still, people say, okay, but at the end of the day, you are having the upper hand. And I don't believe that we can really prevent this feeling, because it doesn't have to be based on facts on the ground. The general feeling is that because Israel is stronger, then they will have to pay for any solution, including the two-state solution. So these are the fears that I'm feeling.
Yeah. Thank you, Yossi. Thank you. One of those vexing issues is security, Shlomo. And we have been asking you, together with your Palestinian colleague, to look again into the security chapter of the HLC, and to look for what we could improve there. So I'm you're free to share what you want to share about that also, although this is part of an ongoing project, as I told you, where we hope to facilitate also Hiba and Yossi to come with a new version, actually, of their initiative at the appropriate time. I come to that later, maybe in our discussion. But now over to you, Shlomo.
Thank you.
Again, also the risks, please.
Yes, thank you, Robert. To get to the risk, I want a little bit to talk about the question, why do we need security arrangement in such an agreement? During the years I am engaged in Israeli-Palestinian negotiations and dialogue, sometimes I am asked by different people, isn't peace the guarantor, the real guarantor for security? Why do you need security arrangements? And my answer is, and that will bring us to risks, is yes, that's the reason I am so committed to these negotiations and dialogue. But there are two important questions. The first one is, how do you get to peace? And the second one is, how do you keep it when you have peace? So to get to peace, you have to convince your public and political echelons that it will improve your security and not weaken it. So you need to present to the public security arrangements that are good enough. And certainly now, after October 7 and this 1.5 years of war, the Israeli public certainly has to be convinced that it will be secure enough. And the second one is, how do you keep it? And security failures can cause the collapse of peace agreement. And we have the experience of the Oslo process. And I don't think that I have to talk too much about the contribution of the security risks that were, to some extent, the result of this process and their effect on Israeli public opinion and on the present status of Israeli public opinion. So, as Hiba said, we didn't try to reinvent everything. We built on the long history of negotiations, formal negotiations. The most important one was, I think, the negotiation that took place at the time of the Olmert government. And of course, on informal dialogues such as the Geneva Initiative. But what we tried to do in the framework of constructing this idea of Israeli-Palestinian Confederation was to ask ourselves two questions. The first one of them, does this idea of confederation, because of the flexibility of the confederation idea, there is no one definition of what exactly is a confederation. And because of the fact that the confederation is based on evolvement. And for me, the best example is the European Union, that is evolving all the time. So if there will be an Israeli-Palestinian confederation, it will evolve. So you can start with certain security arrangements, and then it will evolve. So at the beginning, we don't have a joint military force. The same way the European Union doesn't have a joint military force. But based on the idea of confederation, we can develop more than in other versions of two-state solution, ideas concerning cooperation between the security forces of the two sides, and sometimes even jointness, namely doing some things together, having some joint forces to deal with certain difficult issues. Of course, the one major threat to the ability to implement all these ideas is the level of trust or distrust between the two sides. And we have to take account of the fact that at the beginning there will be relatively a high level of distrust, and you will have to build trust gradually. So that is one point.
I asked for 2 or 3, not more.
Let's go to other questions.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yes. Sorry. Then I didn't want to cut you off.
Okay.
No. Please. Not at all.
And the second question was, is the framework of a confederation creating new security risks? And it is creating some new security risks. Because one security risk is the security risk that mixed populations create. And it was already mentioned. You know, ex-settlers living in the Palestinian state as permanent residents. On one hand, it's possible that some of them will pose security risk to the new Palestinian state because of their ideology. On the one hand, there will be threats, potential threats aimed at them. So how do you protect them and prevent them from malicious acts? And that's true also for the Palestinian residents that will live in Israel. So that is one problem, a more mixed population. The second problem is the free flow of goods and people through the border. I don't think that I have to convince Europeans that it is a problem. I know that the Schengen agreement is a very controversial issue now in Europe, exactly because of that. So there was an emphasis on dealing with these two kinds of threats by appropriate border control arrangements, by better cooperation between the security forces of the two sides, by the commitment that they have to take upon themselves, and also by an element of third-party monitoring and presence.
Yeah.
So, you know, in a previous session there was a presentation about it. In my humble opinion, it was a little bit naive, and I had too much expectations from a third-party presence. But I think that built correctly, it can be very useful.
I think that's about enough. Thank you, because I have to think about the time also. But thank you very much, because it shows that we are really, thank you. It shows that we are really delving into the issues. And by the way, he is not doing this alone, but with his Palestinian colleague. And that's what I find so unique in this initiative, that it is always coming from both sides, that we try to look into these very difficult issues. Now, before I open up to the audience, if I may, just one more question to both Hiba and Yossi, because there's something unique in this HLC, which it also includes a joint narrative, a joint story about the conflict. And if you haven't read it yet, I really recommend you to read that, because I haven't seen it actually anywhere else. You also went into the origins of the conflict and you came up with a joint narrative. Now my question to you, of course, is this was before the 7th of October. So is it still valid? Or do you feel that you have to add to it? It's of course maybe a difficult question to put to you, but of course, with all the new pain, all the new suffering, I hope you will tell us that it is still valid.
Sure, it is still valid. We've actually updated the narrative to include October 7th.
Oh, you already did?
Already,
okay.
Yes. And I mean, sure, pain and suffering is certainly there, and we live it every day still. But we have to be true, honest, and truthful in terms of the chronological listing of the history of the conflict. And we go even farther than that into the Jewish presence in this historic land before it was the State of Israel. So we go back before 48. So I think, as I said last night, because the issue of the narrative is so sensitive and so delicate, we opted to list historically the attachment to the land and the history of both people to the land. We did not argue the narrative. We didn't argue one side over the other. We did not say you're right, you're wrong, or this is my narrative, this is my version of the narrative, or this is your, and I will argue with the version of your narrative, or no, the numbers who died is more than that, and who started the 1948 war, or who did not start the 1967 war, and so forth and so on. So it was not an argument about who's right or who's wrong. These are the facts. This is the factual state of narrative, and we listed it. And in that, we had the support of actually two very, very special historians and professors who one of them is a Palestinian American, and the other is, and he is actually more than a Palestinian, he's of Greek origin.
Yeah. Saliba Sarsar.
Saliba Sarsar. He's Greek, Christian, Palestinian, who's in America now, and he's an American citizen. So he's not he doesn't have, but he's also mixed. He doesn't have Arab blood in him. His wife is Palestinian Arab, and so his children are mixed. But he's Greek and Russian, I think, or some.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
very.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, just to show that we have. But he's a Palestinian, so we have people of all sorts of ethnicities, and the other is Amnon.
No, I'm not dealt with Jerusalem.
Yeah, the Jerusalem chapter. Yeah. So, Yossi.
Yeah, I mean, after we ended the work on the Geneva Initiative in 2003, there were many people whom I appreciated who said to us, if you don't solve 48 and you are only solving 67, you solve nothing. Meaning, if you don't get to the roots of the conflict, which are 47, although the roots are earlier, and just you deal with the border and how do you divide Jerusalem, this is not a solution of the problem. And I felt that they were right. I mean, that we should work on the roots. So we began to work and search for material. I had a sabbatical in NYU, and I taught the conflict, and I taught the story of the conflict. So, there is nothing better than teaching when you want to learn. So I read whatever I could about the story of the conflict, although I thought that I knew everything, but you never know everything. And I searched for something which is joint. I found only one thing, one book, which puts on the same page the Palestinian story and the Israeli story. I think that it is called Two Sides. It was published about 12 years ago. And I came to a very strange conclusion. If Hiba and myself are asked to write the narratives, each of his or her people, by definition, by definition, you are more one-sided than needed, because you were hired, so-called, to write your story. You were not hired to write Hiba's story. So I saw that although it was written on the same page, the gaps were wider than needed. And I said to myself, we must write together rather than separately. And I must say that it was much easier than I had thought. Because when I worked on it with Saliba, we did not argue, as Hiba said, we did not argue that in 47 there was the UN resolution, and then there was the Arabs who lived in Palestine attacks on the Israeli on the Jews, and there were horrible things then, and these were the numbers of victims, and these were the number of people who were expelled, which is 730,000. We did not argue about that number, which became much bigger, of course, in few years. And many other things. And we found, we wrote 20 pages, if you look at our paper, of joint narrative. Here and there were difference of numbers. For example, how many Palestinians participated in the British forces in the Second World War? People know that Jews volunteered to serve in the British Army, but much less about the fact that there were quite many Palestinians, less than the Jews, but quite many Palestinians who participated. So we tried to find the right number in different sources, and we agreed about the number, which was, I believe, 11,000, but I'm not sure that I remember. I think that this was the number. So we found out something which was surprising for both of us. In a short while, few months, we were the first in the world who wrote together the narrative of the enemies. And you don't know who wrote what, because you have 20 pages, and we both did it. So I think that sometimes, you are afraid of a monster, because at the same time when people say to us, if you don't deal with the sources of the origins of the conflict, you don't do anything, people say to us, don't even touch the narrative. What you can do, the best thing that you can do is that both sides will tell their narratives. But I think that there was no, it was not efficient. It would have not done nothing to us. So this is the story of the narrative, and I think that we can be happy with the result.
No, thank you. I think it's very important that they were among each other, were setting the record straight, the facts you can agree on. And this is very remarkable also as part of this initiative, because I think it is important. Now I think we should turn to the audience, and I saw already one question here, another question there, and a third question there. I will think all three for the sake of time, and then get back to the panel.
Congratulations, really, and you deserve real credit for starting the discussion in a very difficult issue. I'm coming from Bosnia, and I have experience like yours experience, and maybe some, not advices, but experience, so it could be maybe useful for you. First agreement was not complete. It was just that there will be two entities in Bosnia, and not be from the beginning with the clear borders. Then, this is the most sensitive. Borders were decided by the third side. At that time it was US, Russia and Europe together. In your case, the only real force which can make neutral line is, according to my opinion, European Union. Because all the other players not have the same support from both sides. We had our own Jerusalem. That's one city, which divided Serb entities on two parts, and for the Bosniak it was exit to the Europe. It was not part of the deal at the beginning. It was later decided, few months, almost a year later. It is district, but not state district. It is condominium of two entities. With the full local authorities of the people from there, but with one additional guy who is acceptable for both sides, who has the right to decide if there is no decision. In Jerusalem, there will be that's someone who is elected by both sides and who has foreigner, who has right to make a final decision if there is no agreement among the players. And you will have a lot of difficulties. If you have Jerusalem like a common city, which street will be in a better condition, which one not. So there could be a very small and big issues which has to be decided. So something like that is also could be a part of a deal. Bosnia is a little bit more than confederation, relatively weak federation. A lot of responsibilities on the entity level and some small issues on the top. So one of the challenges, and my question to you is also, what will be the responsibility of the Confederation? Which issues? They are very sensitive issues, and my experience is we have two sorts of the institution at that level. One very efficient, and another extremely inefficient. We have very stable currency, we have a normal banking system, We have a very efficient indirect tax administration. Why? There is no political influence on these institutions. Once the leaders were elected, it's not anymore the problem of the political players. So my advice, if there's something at that level, it has to be very clear procedures and very clear responsibility, not to leave it to the politicians. And don't make too many responsibility at the beginning at that level. Later everything could be possible. And part of the deal was also every second year elections. In first elections there was no change. Second, opposition came to the power. I'm just mentioning. So there may be some of these advices, but don't make Confederation too responsible.
Thank you. I take another question. That was over there, I think. Yeah?
Thank you. I just went out to the bank to face the wall with my back. Anyway, the Bosnians in Bosnia, Serbs, Croats, Bosnians, Muslims, they're living in peace for 30 years, since Dayton agreements. And, well, maybe this was really a harsh imposing on three people of some rules to obey, which are precise, but still somehow survive. But I would start my question with another. The mention of peace that was said today already, which should be sustained, not fought for, not expected. And the ceasefire, as it exists now, may be something that is worthwhile sustaining in the sense of l'instant décisif. In my pure French, it's a decisive moment. And for many reasons, which were already argued today in this hall, we may, after 2 or 3 years, find out, in retrospect, that the year 25 was a decisive moment in history. After the Second World War, after the end of the Cold War, we had a prolonged...
May I ask you what your question is? Because we don't have so much time.
Okay. And in this moment, it is also equally important, as it was already stressed, that we have something that we have planned in advance and grab in such a moment. And well, the idea especially of a two-state solution. And then, in Foreign Affairs, I think it was, I read it, the Confederate version of two states are two ideas that are floating around. And while reading the Foreign Affairs article, I asked myself, why did author of the article not conclude that all the deficiencies of a two-state solution are not in an elegant and precise way solved by a confederate solution, but by a federate solution.
So your question is, why not a federal solution?
So
Okay.
I would ask the panelists, what would they think about, let's say, provocatively titling the state, the nation, which is built, the nation-building process, as United States of, I don't know now.
Okay. I think your question is clear. Your question. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Can I go to the next? I think there is another.
Why not federation?
Yeah, dear Yossi and Hiba, just maybe not about the initiative itself, but how did you end up together? How did this initiative born? I mean, how did you know each other? Tell us about the beginning. How did you come up with this idea to have a confederation?
Thank you. That's a nice question also. I take one more question there, the gentleman there on the other side. And then maybe if, well, I don't know how much time we actually still have. Yeah? Okay.
We are unlimited.
Okay. All right.
I'll try and keep mine brief. I have a couple of questions. Captain Alexander from London, associated with a few organisations to try and improve the degeneracy in the United Kingdom, but mainly about human trafficking around the world. I really like the Holy Land Confederation a lot. I think that it would work very well. My concern is, and my question really is, the rebuilding of Gaza, which I think is a priority over anything else. Will it be done in a way that ensures the Palestinians will retain control over their own land? And if it is done, how will it be paid for? As we know, the people of Gaza don't exactly have billions of dollars in their pocket. Are we thinking foreign investors? Are we thinking governments? And if they do that, is it going to be in the form of a loan? Has the HLC actually thought of this? At the end of the day, once it's rebuilt, do we want the Palestinians or the Gazans there to be dependent on foreign aid for the rest of their life? That's one of the most important things, and that is my question today.
Thank you. Well, I think there will be a second round because we have too many questions now, otherwise it may confuse the panel. So I think over now back to you, Yossi and Hiba, on the several questions which you got. As I remember them also about the EU, the role of the EU could be playing in this. Then there were questions about the history of this, and then there was also a question about the question of confederation or federation, as I remember. And then I think you brought up very good questions also about the responsibilities, exactly. That's a very good question, I think, for you also maybe to take. If you have a very small question, you want to add? Okay, then you can.
I'm not commenting anything, it's
all right.
Fantastic. But you said that's so important that you've been starting and you've been doing writing the history together. I talked about education yesterday, the base art, the history books. Is there anything you could not agree on?
Good question, really good question. Thank you for that question.
The answer is no.
Really?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
There was nothing that we could not agree upon. I mean, it is usually the issue of the music of the words.
Yeah.
I mean, you have always good enough reasons to forgive yourself for mistakes, right? Even if you want to be objective about yourself. So each side was a little bit more subjective by nature, but there were no. We really agreed upon it. You can read it. I mean, we could agree easily on all the issues.
That's fantastic, frankly.
Sometimes it is. I mean,
I know a lot of
perpetrators or terrorists. Which word, you know? For example, there was. But we found always the solutions. I mean, if both sides are coming with goodwill to succeed in negotiations, nothing in the world will prevent them from success. If one of them comes in order to obey the order of the leaders to fail in the negotiations, they will succeed beautifully, and nothing will happen. If both of them are coming in order to fail, they will succeed for sure in failure.
Okay.
Like Oslo, I mean, we came with a passion to succeed. So we had an agreement. I mean, it can be criticized, maybe we made mistakes or whatever, but we helped each other all the time. Like, for example, Shlomo, you know, if you go this way, it's fine with me, but you have to be very careful because eventually it may bring you to a huge mistake. And then Shlomo said, you know what, you are right. Okay, I give up, I don't want it. It happened to us many times in the negotiations because I call it the club of the negotiators. The club of the negotiators is becoming one group which want to succeed, even personally. They want to go back home and to prove that they were able to succeed. And they begin to negotiate not with each other, but with their leaders, to give up on something or to compromise on something, because they believe that they can achieve by that something which is more important. And the leader at home is saying, no, you cannot accept it, because nobody will forgive you. So we are negotiating not with the other side at all. Mm-hmm. And people who were participants in negotiations know it very well. The Club of Negotiators is the book which has not been published yet.
Yeah. Maybe now to continue this, on the question of the main responsibilities for the Confederation, there was also the question about why not a federation rather than a confederation, and maybe how this all started.
Sure. But just to, in terms of your question, we weren't there to score points, and we weren't there to win over the other. So this is why we have been working very diligently to find, wherever we have a hurdle, we would overcome it, and fairly swiftly, as Yossi said. Responsibilities, the Confederation is the structure, it has institutional structures where we will coordinate that the two countries, the two sovereign nations, two sovereign countries will coordinate through institutions. They will have, each country will have its own and full independence in terms of the parliament, in terms of the judiciary, in terms of the political structure within the country, but there will be joint institutions to coordinate on mutual issues, like economic issues, economics and trade, on security, on
planning,
infrastructure, water, natural resources, environment, health. All of these issues would be coordinated. So, because again, we are sharing a very small area, and the natural resources are so, especially the water, aquifers and so forth and so on, and the fact that there will be desalination and on, and the use of technology in economic development, in energy development, in electricity development. So there will be a lot of, the institutions will coordinate very closely together. And they will, wherever there's a dispute on any issue, it will be raised to the level of the political leadership. If there's an issue where the parties the two sides will not agree on in terms of the institutions, then it will be elevated to the political level for resolution. What we also are proposing is a dispute resolution mechanism, which was absent in the Oslo agreements. So the parties will resolve their conflicts together. If they cannot, this will be escalated to the level of dispute resolution mechanism. Again, we've built in a fairly flexible system where the two sides will coordinate together on mutual issues. So the responsibilities are but the countries are so independent in terms of their own policies, in terms of their own national interests and so forth. When there's mutual interest, they will coordinate together. A confederation between two sovereigns, as opposed to a federation, we believe that it would be the better model for us, because a federation also applies to entities that are not sovereign. It's like you can be sovereign in your own little square, but you're not sovereign in terms of your own national policies. So, for example, take the U.S. The U.S. states, each state has its own policies and they have their own laws and judiciary and so forth and so on, and education board but on foreign policy, that's the responsibility of the federal government. So this is not the situation between Israel and Palestine.
Yossi, would you like to add maybe something still on these questions, and then also Shlomo?
On this question, it is we are inventing here a structure. As I said, there is no confederation in the world, and we didn't find something that we wanted to copy. We created something which opens the way for both sides to be totally independent. All the functions are there in order for us to coordinate. But if one side doesn't want anything, nobody can impose on it to us. So it is, and it is part of the agreement then that at least once every 4 years, the two governments sit together on liberalizing the border regime and other things. So we know in advance that they would like to proceed. But the beginning, also in order not to frighten both sides that we will be dominating or the other side will be dominating, if we don't want something or the Palestinians don't want something, it will not happen. But we have to meet together, and there will be ideas where we can cooperate more. In the first stage, only coordination. And we must have coordination in such a small area. It was really crazy not to have such a coordination when you speak about 6,000 square kilometers.
Shlomo? Oh, sorry, you're not finished yet.
Foreign policy, where is foreign policy?
Foreign policy is each country. I mean,
Each country.
nobody will deal with the
But each country have to take into account the interest of the others.
Yeah.
So there is a commitment in the agreement that they will not form alliances with states
Against,
or
yeah,
organizations that are hostile to the other one.
About rebuilding Gaza. First of all, Gaza will be part of the Palestinian state. That's it goes without saying. You have the maps there in our booklet. The idea is that it is not part of our book, but that the rehabilitation of Gaza, the rebuilding of Gaza, will be done by the Gulf states, and the ones who will be there, boots on the ground, should be the Palestinians themselves. Maybe not immediately, then later on, but it should be the Palestinian state. Or, I mean, if we go according to our book, then we are negotiating for a month. After a month, Israel, the Palestinian state, we are negotiating for a year, and after, when we finished our negotiations, Israel recognizes the Palestinian state. And then there is another year and a half to establish the Confederation. If in the meantime, in this year and a half, after we signed the agreement, the Palestinians or the Israelis decide that they don't like to have a confederation, then the borders that we were already decided upon in our negotiations will remain the same. And the other arrangements, almost all of them, will remain with or without confederation. So the confederation may be kind of scaffoldings for the Palestinian state, and maybe a structure which will remain in the future. But Gaza is part of it. There is no question, and the idea is that it will be the Gulf states, because they were already ready for it. And the issue of of how did we begin? I don't remember. It was a long time ago. Do you remember?
I got a call from you.
Ah, okay.
This is how it happened.
Okay, thank you.
And that's history, since it's been history.
Then you,
since.
sorry, Shlomo.
As I have already said, the Confederation must be an evolving entity. It can evolve into a federation. It can evolve into pure two-state solution. So that is the first reason why it cannot be a federation. The second reason, I think, it is because it will not satisfy the Palestinian urge for self-definition, to have their own state. And the third one is that it is risky, a federation. Because a federation can start moving towards a full one-state solution, especially when there is a change in the balance of force between the two parties, because of demographic reasons or others.
Thank you. Please, go ahead.
What about the region? What about the region? The Confederation has also to consider, let's say, to make it short, the Arabic Palestine member, and the Confederation has also to, a certain way, to connect. Is it any, I mean, did you think so about it? And by today, for instance, we will see the plan which was addressed in Cairo, which is very detailed. It was the one we were expecting. It's really a real piece as a document and as a plan. How you will consider, I mean, to try to connect, to explain, to fill the gap, to establish relation. Because, I mean, you remember, long time ago, there were some of us trying to just mention, based on what is Europe, that Israel is an Arab country. Geographically,
Yeah.
culturally, and it will remain forever. If not, we have to go somewhere else. Did you address this issue?
Thank you very much for this question, because it's already also looking a little bit forward also, which was also what I wanted to ask you, to look a bit ahead now. What are your next steps? I think the question of how can you fit this into a regional approach is a very important one.
And the Arab Peace Initiative.
And the Arab Peace Initiative. So this is indeed already a little bit looking forward. Before you answer, if there is any other question still, which you would like to pose. Somebody, yeah, in the back. If you can find a microphone.
Hello, I'm from India. My question is, are there still prospects for cultural exchanges through education and students? As seen in programs like Erasmus in Gaza, where students could participate in...
I'm sorry, I can't hear you very well.
Are there still prospects for cultural exchanges through mediums like education and student exchanges, as seen through programs like Erasmus in Gaza? Do you think that such student exchanges and diplomacy of sort can help improve the relationship of the future generation of both Palestinians and Israelis?
Thank you, thank you. Yes?
Thank you. And actually just following on from the question from a young member, which is great to see. And I'm just wondering, the initiative has clearly support across everybody who's here. And engagement with the youth is hugely important because they have lost faith in the leadership, and therefore we need the youth to be the ones advancing the cause of this initiative, and what can be done to ensure that they're the ones on Instagram, on TikTok, on all of these accounts, saying the key words that lead people to this initiative and a greater understanding of it, if there's any work being done. If not, I suggest perhaps the Academy can help with young people engaging young people to start advancing that very quickly.
Thank you very much. That's also indeed very good questions. Well, I see one more, and then it's the last one as far as I'm concerned.
Very quick question. How would a confederation of this sort be affected by, for example, continued attacks on Israel from Hezbollah in Lebanon, or another example? So how would the confederation, have you thought about how the confederation would be affected by external attacks on one of the two countries?
Yeah, so that's a question for you, Shlomo, to answer. Let's now go indeed. I think there are two main questions to be addressed here in coming from this round of questions. So it's a question how to embed a confederation, the HLC, in the efforts, the regional efforts to first of all, of course, stop the dreadful war in Gaza, but then have a two-state solution. And then, of course, how are you going to broaden your base, in particular to the youth, and on both sides, on the Palestinian and the Israeli side? So please, over to you. Who wants to start it off?
Yes, you go ahead.
Well, about the region, the whole idea is that it will be open to the next members who would like to join such a confederation. This is also one of the reasons that we called it the Holy Land, because the Holy Land is wider than just Israel and Palestine. You know, about 150 years ago, I met with Arafat, and we talked about the confederation. And I spoke with him already then about this idea. And he said that it is a good idea, but I forgot another state. I said, you mean Jordan? He said, not necessarily. Syria? He said, no. So who will join the confederation? He said, Lebanon. Lebanon is a country which is ripe for a confederation like that. The fact that Hezbollah is holding it doesn't mean that it should not join at a certain moment such a confederation. And I believe that he was right. Then when I published in 2015 an article in the New York Times about the confederation, I got a very big letter with a stample. And I opened the letter, and it was a very short one. Yossi, where are we? And the one who signed it was Prince Hassan. So he did not represent Jordan, and in Jordan you have at least two views about such a confederation, especially if it is before or if the Jordanian-Israeli confederation precedes the Israeli-Palestinian one. But if there is an Israeli-Palestinian confederation, I believe that in Jordan there will be an opening for such a confederation, a trilateral confederation. And then, if Hezbollah is really weakening, and the new regime in Beirut believes that it is a good idea, then really why not? That's between us. I mean, if it is tomorrow published, people will say that we are totally crazy. But it is not impossible to think about such a regional structure. And about the youngsters, it is a very important point, because the youngsters on the Palestinian side are boycotting not only Israel, but anybody who is having relations with Israel. It is impossible to have meetings among youngsters, as it was in the past. Seats of peace and things like this, you don't have it anymore. You don't have it. And it is really a pity. It breaks our hearts. But they are also attacking meetings if they know that there is, for example, if we are coming to Ramallah and they know in advance, as it happens, that we are coming, we, meaning groups of peaceniks, they are coming and throwing everything. I mean, they sabotage meetings like that. So we have to do it almost
internationally.
Yeah.
If you do it outward,
and
using other countries, youth from other countries.
Of course.
Could help.
Yes,
It does
yes.
help. I know of an initiative in my own country where the youth of the Netherlands are still meeting with, well, I'm not sure that it is still happening, but certainly before October 7 it was happening.
Still alive, even more.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Yeah.
2 weeks ago, including people coming from Gaza.
Yeah, I know about it, but it is very rare. It is very rare, and people are afraid. I mean, youngsters in Palestine are afraid to meet with our kids.
Shlomo, the question
Okay.
on
The question,
how do you defend the Confederation?
Well, in our work, we strived for the maximum equality and symmetry between the two sides. But we cannot deny that for years there will be still asymmetry between the two sides. Asymmetry in their perceived threats, what is threatening them, and asymmetry in the capabilities. As I said, there will be not a joint military force of the two sides. So at the beginning, it will be the responsibility of the IDF to deal with military threats, external military threats. As the Confederation will evolve, it should change, it might change. But I want also to point at the fact that when discussing this issue, we have to understand that it is a completely new reality. It's a reality of peace and cooperation between Israelis and Palestinians. So what excuse exactly will Hezbollah have to fight with Israel? As well as the Houthis in Lebanon, as well as Iran. It will deny them of their excuses for doing these things. But if they will pose a threat to the Israel, to the Confederation, the IDF will deal with it. I want also to refer to the issue of the regional aspect.
Yeah, please.
The wider regional aspect. You know, in all this darkness and gloom of the last 16 months, and there is, in my opinion, one very positive development. And that is the growing willingness of most of the Arab regional parties to make a contribution and to cooperate on security issues. I couldn't dream before October 7 that there will be a situation in which Israel, Jordan, Saudi Arabia will cooperate on air defense, missile defense, the way it was done during the two attacks of Iran. Yeah. So that opens the possibility to integrate the security arrangements with a new security order in the Middle East, in which the main element is security cooperation.
Just a
Yes, please.
a very last comment maybe on this. The Confederation will definitely promote and dovetail with the Arab Peace Initiative. There's no doubt about it that the idea is to really go more regional and to be more inclusive rather than exclusive. And the idea of the Palestine will be demilitarized or non-militarized.
Non-militarized.
Non-militarized. The idea of regional security cooperation and trade cooperation and energy cooperation within the context of the Arab Peace Initiative and the Confederation, I think, will make it easier for Palestine actually, and makes the Confederation more attractive for the state of Palestine. Because it is more integration, it is more trade, and it will be relying less on the Israeli economy. And labor can perhaps move more freely. And we will not be totally dependent on the state of Israel. And we will not be dependent on the state of Israel for our own security. So we are not giving up our security. We will be part of a regional security envelope and a trade envelope, an open movement with sovereign borders.
Exactly, because it's a confederation. Right. I don't know if you still will wish to share some closing thoughts with the...
No, I like the idea.
I think this was a very good ending already.
To answer the question.
What I hope is that this idea, this creative idea of a confederation, playing with the confederation, that it merits further thought. I feel that at least how we have been discussing it today with each other is already a ray of hope in the present darkness, where we all know that we are still faced with a situation in Gaza that first needs to be resolved. But as you have always been telling me also, Yossi, once there is an opportunity for peace, we should also be ready for it. And consider this also as one of those thoughts, one of those concepts, one of those ideas that could help us in order to finally help all people in the region to come to better relations and ultimately peace. So thank you all. Applause for the initiative. I think it's done. It's time for dinner now, or not?